Good morning. Please let me, in my first words in this Chile Day in London, to be in Spanish, para felicitar expresamente a Chile por su victoria de ayer. Le deseo mucha suerte en la final. Yo sé que muchos de los presentes aquí estaban viendo con entusiasmo el partido y ganar un partido de esas características siempre es importante. Entonces, muchas felicidades para Chile, me alegro mucho de su triunfo y muchos éxitos en ese campo y en todos los demás. Thank you very much for your kind invitation to participate in the 2017 Chile Day. Invest Chile has done a huge job during the last decade in order to strengthen the ties between representatives of Chilean capital markets and their global partners, and also to showcase Chile abroad as both a highly attractive investment destination and as well-located platform for the administration of funds across Latin America and other emerging markets. Congratulations to this organization and these partners of this conference, minister, ambassadors, all different sponsors. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much for the people that led me to be here. For me, it's a very great pleasure to visit Chile often. Last time was in last April to do the presentation of the lawyer firm DLA Piper with our local partner BAS. DLA Piper is the largest lawyer firm in the world, and it might be a part of this firm is the best as well. But I hope that we have a lot of opportunities in Chile to job to make more strong the situation and the economic situation in Chile. But I am sure that this Chile Day will be another success. But nowadays, it seems politically incorrect to make a case for free trade, economic freedom, and even democracy. But it is precisely what I am about to do. I like very much to be politically incorrect in this time. In a moment like this, when protectionism and nationalism are rising everywhere, when Western values seems to be weaker than ever, and at permanent stake, it is crucial to advocate for freedom as a core element of our open societies. Many people in the Western countries seem to be increasingly convinced that individual freedom must only be related to individual rights of association, political participation, speech, or equality before the law, among others. When it comes to property rights, free trade and economic freedom, they claim that it is better to limit the will of the people and the nations to be wealthier with barriers, limits, taxes, burdens, or even walls. Latin America is not an exception, but it also has a perfect case study to demonstrate how important is economic freedom and free trade to overcome poverty, fulfill the development goals, and become a global actor. In my view, Chile is the most relevant case example of that fact. For many years now, different Chilean governments and administrations have perfectly understood the potential of globalization and the fact that development and growth are related with becoming a global economic player. Chile has attracted the attention and resources of many foreign investors. By building strong and trustful institutions, by promoting a flexible, a transparent fiscal and legal framework through ambitious economic reforms, by signing free trade and regional associations agreements, and a few words, by letting Chilean companies and individuals to take their own economical decisions. The consequence of 2 decades of economic openness in Chile is quite clear. It has become the most prosperous country in Latin America and one of the most attractive countries in the world for foreign investors. Let me give you some figures that demonstrate it. I won't compare them to the results of the other countries that prefer to put limits to economic freedom, but that will be an easy exercise for any of you. Over the past 30 years, Chile has shown strong and sustained growth rates and has made major improvements in important areas such as poverty, education, and health. Chile's poverty rates has notably decreased from 40% in 1999 down to 15% today. There have been major improvements in education. In 1999, the education index was 0.6, in 2015, 0.8. Life expectancy has grown significantly from 72 years in 1999 to 82 in 2015, allowing Chile to become the first Latin American country in the Human Development Index. Also, during the last few decades, Chile has consolidated the globalization of its economy. Even during the recent global recession, Chile has shown better figures than many other countries that are less committed to the economic freedom. In a few words, Chile took the right path in the right moment, and that means superb consequences for the Chilean society, both in terms of democratic development and economic growth. Since 2014, Chile's economic growth has slowed down considerably, so it seems very important to keep on doing structural reforms to open and modernize its markets and productive sectors. To promote growth in the short term, demand stimulus measures. And to allow for a stronger potential growth in the medium term, reforms tackling poverty and inequality, for example. There are some external factors that cannot be avoided, but can be better supported if these reforms are implemented. Let me point out some of them. The less favorable external environment, that is slower growth in China, the United States, and Europe, which adds to the structural reforms in the Latin American area. The permanently lower price of copper, and we all know how highly dependent is the Chilean economy of these exports. As a consequence of that, Chile's GDP growth rate slowly decreased up to 1.7 in 2016. However, according to recent projections, this will change in 2017, for which IMF is forecasting a growth of around 2%. The slowdown in growth of recent times has had an important impact on public finances and employment. In 2014, Chile's public deficit was 1.6 of GDP, 2.2 in 2015, and 3.1 in 2016. Chile deficits project to grow further to 3.3% of GDP in 2017. The unemployment rate was 6.4 in 2014, 6.2 in 2015, and 7 in 2016. The IMF expects unemployment to continue to grow out to 7.6 in 2017. In short, the Chilean economy remains vulnerable to external shock, such as an unexpected slowdown in Chile's main trading partners, mainly China, or a change in the US policy. Even when Chile continues to face two important challenges, as the high poverty rate, which still affects 15% of the population, and the high inequality, the results are way far better than for all other regional players. Different foreign direct investment has been an essential part of Chile's national development strategy for more than 30 years. The broad political consensus of the advantages of foreign investment in the country made it possible. The signing of free trade agreements and the association to the Pacific Alliance have created an optimum environment for foreign investors, and it has also allowed many Chilean companies to become global. I have the honor and the opportunity to participate in the signing of and promote the free trade agreement between the European Union and Chile in 1997. I am deeply convinced that the Pacific Alliance is the most important project of association put in practice in the region, and it should serve as an example for other Latin American democracies. Together, the four countries forming the Pacific Alliance, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and Chile, represent 38% of Latin American and Caribbean's total GDP, approximately 50% of the region's foreign trade, and 44% of the total foreign direct investment in the region. But furthermore, they are democratic countries committed with the Western values and are doing a great job to modernization and adaptation to the new global order. Once again, the foreign direct investment figures of Chile proves that this is the right path to worldwide. Let me mention just a few of them. The flows of foreign direct investment in Chile have been growing since 2010 and have reached record levels, amounted $2,002 billion. In 2015, FDI to Chile represent 8.5% of Chile's GDP. Chile is the second most attractive country for foreign investors in South America after Brazil. However, foreign investment in Chile is very regular because it is often linked to projects in the mining sector. Chilean policies and friendly environment for foreign investment are the counterpoint of this irregularity. All of you are aware that presidential election will take place in Chile by the end of this year. So I won't mention the sort of the political and economic reforms that I, in my view, consider essential in order to interfere in national political debate. I don't like to interfere in a Spanish political debate. I don't like to interfere in Chilean political debate. Anyway, what I want to express is my convictions that more reforms are needed in many fields. What Chile has done is not very different to what I tried to push forward when I was the Prime Minister of Spain for 8 years. Let me also give you a new figures, probably well now for many of you. At that time, Spain became a member of the euro, one of the strongest economies in Europe and the 8th economy of the world. Our labor market reform promotes the creation of more than 5 million new employments, with a drop of unemployment rate from 2002 to 11. We attract more than 6 million migrants without social or racial classes, or the emergence of xenophobic parties. We balance the public budget. For the first time in our history, we had a surplus instead of a public deficit. And we managed to reduce the public debt to 46%. Now it is over 100% of the GDP. Many Spanish companies took the decision at that time to expand and become bigger, benefiting from the opportunities of the globalization. They are now among the most important multinational companies in many sectors, as in Chile now very well. I've just mentioned this to prove that what can be positive for a country like Chile or Spain can also be good for any other country in the world. The opposite has also been proved true. Historically, every nation that has decided to increase its protectionism based on a nationalist rhetoric has always had very negative consequences in the short, medium, and long terms. I won't be different this time. Dear friends, thanks to free trade and economic freedom, the world is a better place now than 20 years ago. More than 800 million people have overcome poverty and have joined the middle classes. Even when democracy has been the most common political environment for that economic growth and development, some argue that, as it has also happened in a few non-democratic countries, democracy is not essential. They are lying. Economic freedom and free trade are very important, but democratic institutions are even more crucial for the people. And to have a good institutional system is the most important competitive factor for any country in the world. Individual freedom and equal opportunities can only be achieved when the rule of law and democratic institutions are seriously implemented. Many achievements have also been done in this aspect in most of the Latin American countries. But we can also find some countries of Latin America that can be used, as Venezuela, as an example for the worst case scenario. Venezuela was a democracy until the end of the 90s. And in this case, a fair lesson to be learned is that democracy may not be forever and should not be taken for granted. The second is that democratic institutions can be functional even for those that want to destroy democracy from the inside. This is something to be especially considered then a lot of anti-democratic activists are hiding behind populist movements and democratic parties, just waiting for the moment. Latin America has suffered that problem for many years, and in many countries in Europe are now shocked by a similar possibility. It is urgent to reinforce our democratic institutions to avoid that. And the third lesson is also clear and dramatic. There is still a double standard in the international community when some people claim for support against tyranny, dictatorships, and human rights violations. Depending on the political orientation of those regimes, people get the support of other governments, institutions, and individuals, or not. That has been and still is, unfortunately, the case of Venezuela. The brave people of Venezuela is facing a huge battle against a dictatorship that daily represses, tortures, kills, and puts in jail many innocents. Almost 2 million Venezuelans have been pushed to leave the country, and the rest are struggled by the repression mechanism of the regime and the total destruction of the Venezuelan economy, convert in a devastated and insecure country, drowning in an humanitarian emergency crisis. The time has come for everyone to decide in which side to stay, democratic or not democratic one. I have mentioned Venezuela because what is happening there is the model for those that want to dismantle the liberal order. They have tried to do the same in many other countries in the region, and now some dream of a European version of that model. And this, friends, let me conclude by expressing my trust on the future. Since 2003, more than 70 million Latin Americans have left the poverty line behind, and the region has increased its global income by more than 30%. We are no longer before the illusion, more or less imprecise, naive, of a democratic, open, and prosperous Latin America. That is a reality supported by facts, the reality of a great opportunity. Latin America today has an extraordinary opportunity to consolidate a future of prosperity and to play a leading role in an increasingly open and competitive world. But for this, I insist, it is essential to persevere in the path of openness, reforms, and modernization. Where things are doing right, good results are only a matter of time. I am convinced that in the case of Chile, the best is yet to come. I am deeply convinced that the technological revolution we are now living can bring the biggest achievements in the history of mankind, but only if freedom and democracy prevail. It won't be easy, and there will be many challenges to face. Many employments may be lost, but many new others will be created by the demand. Many people will have access to new treatments for grave diseases, but only if democratic institutions are put in place in order to guarantee equal opportunities. And similar examples will be found at the global level in many different fields, including access to education, health, social services, technology, security, water, energy, transport, or equal opportunities. This is the task of each one of us to advocate for that and to try to convince others that the best pages of our history are to come. There is a lot of years that I visit and have a lot of great friends in Chile. I respect profoundly your country. I respect and admire the transition that historically represent a great success for Chile and for all the Latin American countries. In the same way that the Spanish transition, Chilean transition is based on 3-4 pillars that express the establishment of democracy, of freedom, and the spirit of reconciliation, and a consensus for Chilean society on the right, on the left, on the center. Please don't forget this story. Please take care of this pillar. There is no reason to put in risk that pillars that forge the success of a country. When I have problems in Spain and I refer these pillars of the success for the historical success for Spain, I don't understand the people that put in risk the existence of these pillars. If we have achieved a lot of goals based in these pillars, what is the reason to change the situation? The transition in Chile was an example. Chile was an example for a lot of countries in Latin America. It was the model. We must together continue to do a lot of things, but Chilean people, that is brilliant and intelligent, and is the very image of the success in Chile, must continue to believe that the better times for Chile is ahead